Rodwell sticks it up in the air. In actual fact, the reverse kick, and he's got it! Oh, sensational Matthew Rodwell!
David Wade said at the start of the year that the youngsters will get an opportunity this year, and when that opportunity has arisen, the young blokes certainly have taken their chances.
Matthew Rodwell, one of the new young stars in the Newcastle Knights top 13. The economics uni student won the coveted halfback spot in the pre-season and hasn't let it go, becoming a focal point in the Knights' armoury. Another is fullback Brad Godden, blooded last year and now the number one fullback. Joining Godden and Rodwell is Shane Mackley, an Australian schoolboy rep brought into the side against St George, and he also has impressed many. Rounding out the troop is stunning winger come fullback Robbie O'Davis, a trainee transport worker with Brambles, and thankfully his ability on the paddock surpasses his talent as a forklift driver.
Shane Mackley especially, he's really jumped on his chance in first grade, and Brad, he's playing tremendous football. Same with Matty Rodwell, he's playing unbelievable at the moment, and I think it seems to be a young man's game these days.
But all the accolades are being sure for Sunday's do-or-die effort against Canterbury at Belmore, a venue the Knights have never won at. And with so many former Bulldogs in the side, there's plenty of incentive to change the record books.
David Wade has stressed that point, and he's keen to get the win up. Also, we're treating it as a semi-final. We realise that that extra 2 points will hold us in good stead in the future, and a loss can see us sort of struggle to make the 5, but we're certainly going out all guns blazing. The City Series is held over 4 rounds and a final, with meetings conducted at Wollongong, Newcastle, Lithgow and Oran Park. The best 20-point scorers after the 4 rounds qualify for the finals through the streets of Wollongong, so this weekend's series is of vital importance to all competitors. 9 separate classes are racing, from cadets to senior pro or Formula A. For the youngsters like Scott Withers of Budgewoi, who is only 8, and Luke Pine, son of well-known racing driver John Pine, go-kart racing is all fun. And even in their debut season, it's easy to see that they are quickly mastering their trade. Most of the interest will centre on the senior pros, and leading the charge will be Adam Clark, who returned from the World Cup in Japan with a brilliant 4th finish, and he's expecting a tough weekend ahead.
Tough competition from all over the place. We've got them from Newcastle, Sydney, Wollongong, there's a few from South Australia. It'll be tough. Darren Steeden in the DAP team there, he's come second in the second round. He'll probably be second favourite at the moment.
Joining Adam in today's practice session, brother Justin, who steps up a class, and if he performs as well tomorrow and Sunday as he did today, the Clark family may just Quinella the big one.
It's just all hard work from there, Mike. I'd like to thank St George and NBN as well for the prizes that they put up tonight. And as I said, I'm just overwhelmed by winning the award tonight. There was some excellent competition that I was up against, and I'm really shocked that I happened to win tonight.
At Glendale today, Charlene Machen was putting the finishing touches to her routines before she heads to Japan to defend her World All-Styles Karate Championship. Kata is a large section of the competition, as is fighting, and Charlene is not about to let the pressure of defending her title get to her.
For any normal person, it'd be a lot of pressure, but I'm not putting that sort of pressure on myself. If I can go over there and fight better than I did last year, then I've achieved something, but I intend to do my best to take out another gold.
Meanwhile, at Cameron Park Raceway, the first day of the Newcastle City Series attracted 217 karters from all parts of New South Wales, the ACT and South Australia. The City Series is raced over 5 rounds, and today's 2 heats were vital to all drivers as they vied for precious points. From the cadets to juniors right through to the senior pros, racing was keen, and in perfect conditions, times were exceptionally quick. Finals from noon tomorrow. 3, 4 and 13 were the numbers you needed, and have a look at that trifecta, $1,560.30. "52 riders contested the 120-kilometre journey in A and B grades, winding their way through Breeza, Werris Creek, Currabubula, July, finishing at Rosary College. A couple of riders tried to make a semi-break, and the pack seemed a little reluctant to take up the chase until they got a gentle reminder. From there on, all cyclists put their nose to the grindstone as they battled the hills until the winning post was in sight, and then it was every man for himself. Ian Garrity of Manly won the A grade, Peter Sunderland of Inverell was fourth, with Anthony Freer of Tamworth winning the D grade. There was more online than points this weekend as the Australian team selectors were casting a final look across the field in order to choose the right team for the Motocross to Nations. And they wouldn't have missed the stunning performance by the youngster from Wollongong. Kim Ashkenazi had shown excellent form in Western Australia during the first round, with a win in the 125cc class and a third in the Open 250cc division. But at Coffs Harbour this weekend, he was unbeatable. Ashkenazi made the 125cc his own with 3 wins from 3 starts, and only Rodney Hamilton mounted any challenge, finishing with a third and 2 second places. Lee Hogan on a Honda was third with a second and 2 thirds. Most interest centred on the 250cc class with a return to racing of Craig Dack, but it was an unhappy first heat for the champion as a fall cost him any chance. But again it was Ashkenazi who rode his Suzuki without fear or favour to once again make a clean sweep of the 3-round series. Dack was courageous in second spot with 2 runner-up finishes and a 6th, and filling the minor placings was Troy Doran with a 2nd, a 3rd and a 6th.
According to St Vincent de Paul staff, talk of improvement in the economy. If it did, the story would be very different.
Well, not only those that were traditionally poor are we seeing at the present time, we're also starting to see those that were comfortable in the middle class, that had a job, where now both parties are unemployed.
St Vincent de Paul has been set up by the Catholic Church to help this growing population, and today the new Charlestown Centre received the blessings of the Bishop of Maitland, the Most Reverend Leo Clark. The centres operate by selling donated clothing at a minimum price, with proceeds used to assist the needy. In the past 12 months, St Vincent de Paul has spent more than $200,000 in providing food, clothing and financial assistance to needy people in the Lake Macquarie area alone. That's an increase of more than 30% on this time last year. Statewide, the figures are similar. Mr Fitzgerald says it'll be some time yet before things improve.
The voucher system is based on a European model where motorists purchase coupons and mark out the duration of their stay rather than insert coins in a meter. The system was trialled by more than 300 volunteer motorists in the Newcastle CBD from February to May. Managing Director of Personal Parking Meters, Mrs Shirley McHugh, outlined the advantages of the system to council representatives from Newcastle, Gosford, Tamworth and several from Sydney. Mrs McHugh's son Simon was murdered in an incident in Newcastle last month. He was to have chaired this meeting.
Simon can never be replaced, but his work will be carried on in the same excellent manner as was originally planned.
Results of the trial were analysed by the Hunter Valley Research Foundation, providing a wealth of data for councils considering the system. Other information was provided by Traffic Police, the RTA and the NRMA. But for those expecting the familiar parking meters to disappear overnight, Newcastle City Planner Keith Swan says the system is just one option. One group unlikely to embrace the coupon system are parking meter inspectors. Already they're saying the system is too complicated, but with interest running high in the scheme, they may have to prepare for a change. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
Tari Old Bar battled hard in the early stages, but there was an air of inevitability that Port would click, and in a big way. And they did just that. Quick play the balls and great hands saw them in close to the uprights in this movement. And then not long after, the ball shot out along the back line where all the forwards were lined out. The overlap was created, and again Port strolled in under the posts. And really putting the nail in the coffin, super quick hands were rewarded with another 4-pointer, and Port had retained their competition lead.
The victim was hit by the northbound passenger train near the Woy Woy Tunnel at about 6:30 last night. At first it was thought the man had died, but passengers located him and gave vital first aid until ambulance crews took over. The train driver told police he saw the man lying motionless on the tracks as he rounded a shallow bend. He braked but felt a bump as the train came to a halt. Police believe the victim from Hornsby was a passenger on another train heading south. It's thought he fell or was blown from an open door and lost consciousness after hitting the tracks. He was given a police escort to Gosford Hospital and later transferred to John Hunter Hospital in Newcastle, where surgeons were unable to save his legs. He remains in intensive care in a serious but stable condition. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
Of all those caught up in the escalating unemployment figures for the Hunter, no one is being harder hit than the young. According to one survey, in Newcastle alone, 9,000 people between 15 and 19 years old were looking for work in February. With that kind of background, Newcastle business organisations believe the Federal Coalition's youth wage proposal to get the young into the workforce is worth investigating.
Such high youth unemployment in the Hunter region, we need to look at every possible angle of trying to bring these unemployed back into the workforce. Certainly the proposition put forward by the Liberal Party convention is one that is one that looks like could be workable.
But youth welfare agencies have major reservations about the package. David Cook from the Youth Resource Centre says Dr Hewson made no mention of training the young. What's more, he says, the proposed wages of $114 for 15 to 17-year-olds and $133 for those between 18 and 20 will condemn many to poverty.
We, on a day-to-day basis through the Youth Resource Centre, see a great number of individuals whom are proof that they cannot live on that sort of income level.
Youth workers are concerned the Hewson proposal could be exploited by some employers by laying off older workers and recruiting young people on a much lower wage.
It's unlikely that large employers, even small employers who are feeling the pinch, would be able to resist the temptation of essentially having the same work done but at a significantly discounted rate.
But among those who the package is aimed at, there's divided opinion.
I don't think it'd be good because there's a lot of young people who depend on a higher wage. It encourages people to work.
The Strategic Alliance, agreed to by Tari's LordSafe company and the Melbourne-based Australian Safes, will see both combine their production strengths. In the process, LordSafe hopes to create more jobs at the Tari plant.
Up here at Tari, we'll need more staff over a period as the sales build and as the production orders build. We'll be putting out a greater range of products here at Tari.
Although not usually visible in the family home, Tari's administration manager Tony Dunn says there is a demand for safes on the market.
Has been fairly low in the middle of the recession, but we're seeing signs now that we're getting towards the end of this. People are starting to go out and buy these security products.
So, with one of the biggest safe companies now located in Tari, who should own a safe?
Anyone who's got anything of value, yes.
Believe it or not, this is a piece of history, part of BHP's #1 blast furnace, commissioned in 1915. Fondly known as the Stump, it's all that's left of the furnace, and it's here to stay. And it's not the only item listed with heritage significance on BHP's conservation plan. For example, there's the Master Mechanic's Office, recognised for its vaguely Mediterranean feel, and the pattern store built from sandstone used in Duckenfield House, the home of an early settler. BHP's heritage investigation was sparked by plans to place the entire plant under a heritage order.
The plant is a living, breathing entity. It's not a museum. So we commissioned our own study that would pick out the absolutely significant items.
49 items were chosen, among them the No. 3 and 4 blast furnaces, the original timber docks used for the past 75 years, and the now disused luffing cranes, once responsible for loading and unloading ships. It's not likely that too many of these historical icons will be removed, but BHP can alter the area if need be.
If there is a point in time where we have to move things or we want to redesign plant that would affect those items of state significance, we have to apply for approval through the Council, the Department of Planning and then the Heritage Council, and we put forward a plan and they will respond to it.
Ever since the possibility of Newcastle buses being privatised was raised 5 months ago, the 350 drivers have stopped work to discuss the issue 10 times. At the latest meeting, the members were keenly aware that this could be the last time the buses ground to a halt before the state government handed over Newcastle's routes to private operators. But then a last-minute turnaround. The drivers voted to accept the 10-point restructuring package, which could shave $2.5 million off operating costs.
The members had no alternative but to accept the package because they were faced with it being their decision to privatise Newcastle buses if they didn't accept the package.
But the drivers say they accept the package under protest and that it comes at a huge cost.
There's definitely at least 50 jobs gone, and overall in state transit you're looking at around 120 odd full-time jobs going, maybe 130.
State Transit believes now that the drivers have agreed to the reforms, Newcastle buses will remain in public hands.
Today has been a landmark decision in work structuring in Newcastle in government transport, and we can now compete with our private operators.
Some drivers are not so confident about what the long-term future holds for Newcastle buses.
Once they start cutting, well, part-time workers come in work Saturdays, Sundays, then it'll be Monday to Friday, broken shifts will go, then it'll be easy to privatise then.
But most are just hoping this 11th hour decision means their careers have not stalled. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
Operation Spot Check is the latest in a series of new look highway patrol initiatives. It's a chance to give motorists an opportunity to do the right thing without running foul of the law. Senior Constable Chris Manning devised the campaign after noticing a number of defects during random breath test operations.
We noticed a large number of cars that were stopping had the headlights out, one headlight on, other one not. The tail lights weren't working, the number plate lights weren't working. And from there, it came about this idea of the free safety check.
The Bridgestone Garage provided a venue on the corner of Maitland Road and Baker Street. Mechanics and electricians came from other garages to offer free advice. And while motorists waited with a cuppa and a snack, they could reflect on safer driving habits.
Surveys have shown that the average car on the road is 10 years old, and around that age, these things are starting to become faulty on the vehicle.
The operation will continue until 10 p.m. tonight.
It's not just a wharf accident, a slip or a fall while working on a ship that can lead to a debilitating injury.
It might be from exposure to chemicals, it could be from welding fumes, exposure to asbestos, it might be back injuries from manual handling problems, exposure to excessive noise. There's a whole range of hazards in the industry.
The Maritime Industry Occupational Health and Safety Manual was produced in Newcastle in consultation with maritime industry employers, workers, waterfront unions and government authorities. The manual is intended to complement an existing national code of safety practices and is aimed at eliminating or finding acceptable substitutes for a range of existing workplace hazards.
We don't want the manual to just stay in the office with management. We want the manual to be out in the workplace with the people who are working in the industry.
When Australian aerobatics champion Phil Unicum isn't locked into a death-defying spin at the controls of his vintage Stomp biplane, he doesn't mind a more leisurely jaunt in a slightly tamer Tiger Moth. Tiger Moths were used by the Air Force as a trainer for more than 20 years, and now the rare survivors only gather in force on special occasions. The most special of all, the Woburn Abbey Air Show for the famous de Havilland-designed flock. The aircraft's owner, publisher Kevin Weldon, and Phil will fly their 1930s Tiger from Dover to Calais.
I'm looking forward to doing some aerobatics across the English Channel.
They'll be flying over the French and English countrysides, putting down for black-tie dinner dates.
Very civilised, old boy, yes.
No expense has been spared, from the $1,200 flying suits to the satellite navigation and global positioning system tucked into the flimsy fuselage of the fully restored Moth.
A flood of support for Peter Blackmore is helping to mend the wounds of a 15-month smear and innuendo campaign. That's how long it's taken the independent inquiry against corruption to clear Mr Blackmore of allegations that while Mayor of Maitland, he accepted a cheap boat from a developer as a sweetener to the purchase of a parcel of council land.
I'm very angry at it that the report has come out and said that it was started by a rumour and innuendo.
The rundown boat that Peter Blackmore and his father bought for $5,000 and have since restored ultimately cost taxpayers $250,000 for the court inquiry.
Yes, it's certainly been a very expensive boat.
It cost the family dearly as well.
We've had to fork out $20,000 just to prove what I've maintained all the time, that we are innocent.
The outcome of the inquiry has saved the embattled state government a by-election for the borderline seat, but Mr Blackmore is convinced the issue was cooked up by the Labor Party in a bid to oust him.
Mud will stick, there's no doubt, but mud will stick on the person that's thrown the mud. So I think it's going to stick on the people that have started this innuendo and have lodged this complaint for a political advantage.
Mark Carlisle was deadly for Singleton early on with 2 good penalties that got them on the road. After a sustained attack, they scored their first try when Steve Merrick ripped the ball out to Carlisle and his chip kick was a beauty, a fortuitous bounce and the Reds had scored. Back to Rugby League and the Knights ended North's unbeaten run in reserve grade when they beat the Bears 19-14 in a classic match. Johns and Crowe scored tries early for the Knights. But the Bears are a super side and they hit back to jump in front by 2 points. Not to be outdone, it was the captain of the Knights reserve grade, Steve Fulmer, who broke the Bears' back to give the Knights the win.
It was an early start for competitors in the Rock and Beach division. More than 150 fishermen cast their lines, hoping to pull in the big one. Their labours were judged at a midday weigh-in, and the winner was an 18.5 kilo jewfish. The competition continues this week with dryland casting, estuary and offshore fishing on the agenda.
.130 junior tennis players contested the under-16 and 18 championships and they travelled from Mudgee, Blaney, Grafton, Maitland, Sydney and the local region to participate. And it was a big tournament for Tamworth's Katrina Burke. Katrina teamed with Jenny Fitzsimmons to win the under-16 girls doubles, beating Rachel Sheriff and Summer Barron of Grafton 6-love, 7-6, while in the girls singles, Katrina won both the 18s and the 16s. The boys doubles was a beauty. Duncan Sheriff and Philip Rees of Grafton getting up in a cliffhanger over James Ferguson and Sam Carr 6-1, 2-6, 6-3.
The consultants' report was released last week. Agricultural Minister Ian Armstrong said it failed to adequately justify the perceived need for a college, the source of industry funds and the real cost of establishing the institution. President of the Ag Committee, Ian Miles, disagrees. His reading of the report is that the consultants were positive about the establishment of an ag college in northern New South Wales.
While about 2,000 punters at the harness racing were trying to pick a winner, Peter Blackmore was feeling like one. Only 2 days ago, the state MP had been cleared by the ICAC after bribery rumours had led to an investigation by the Commission. Mr Blackmore's first outing since the findings were released was this special race meeting to help raise money for Sydney's 2000 Olympics bid.
To see so many people just walk up and just want to shake your hand and say congratulations, you know, that is the most heartening part out of all of this.
But also attending the meeting, the ALP's Richard Face, who was keeping tabs on the reaction to the government's recent 1% hike on a tote betting tax.
In the meantime, you put half the race clubs in New South Wales, either gallopers, harness or dogs, in jeopardy.
Despite Mr Blackmore believing Labor had a part in the bribery rumours, he didn't pursue the matter at the racetrack.
No, there's no need to ask that, I know that, so that'll wait until Parliament resumes and I'll do that in my time.
If he put the question to you, was the Labor Party behind those rumours, how would you answer, yes or no?
My understanding is that they weren't, and that's why I've got to take that on face value.
Scott Bevan, NBN News.
To reduce the pressure on the Australian Institute of Sport, academies have been set up in regions for the development of junior sport throughout the country. Beginning on Thursday in Newcastle, the second NIB Games for Academy of Sports will be staged between teams from Newcastle, North Coast, Northern Inland, Illawarra, Western and Riverina.
I think it's important for two reasons. One, to give the kids the opportunity to compete, and secondly, for the academy officials to get together and compare notes and put things together so that we can generally overall improve the programs.
Sports to be contested range from the majors such as tennis, cricket, rugby league and union and netball to the lesser known activities like badminton, lawn bowls, surfing and wave skiing, where the games have received a real coup. World Open and Junior Wave Ski champion Rhys Duncan of Grafton will compete. With the acceptance of the NIB Games as a major event, Ken Clifford has high hopes it will be a national competition next year.
Yeah, I'm hoping it does, Mike. I think that there's a lot of potential in this sort of thing of developing the young sports people in this age group, and I think certainly it can spread interstate next year.
David Hawker visited Port Macquarie today to inspect upgrading work on the Pacific Highway at the invitation of the Liberals line candidate John Barrett. Already, the Liberals are making promises should the Coalition win the next election.
We will maintain the amount of Commonwealth funding for roads at the current level, and we believe that that's a responsible way to do it in the current economic climate, and of course that will be fully funded, unlike what the government is doing where they're just borrowing more money.
It's not just roadworks that's likely to capture the attention of line voters in the lead-up to the election. Liberal candidate John Barrett will battle the National Party's Mark Vaile for the seat. Mr Vaile was nominated following the sitting member Bruce Cowan's decision to retire. In spite of Line's reputation as a National Party stronghold, David Hawker insists the extra competition will help the coalition.
Well, currently the seat of Line has a retiring member, and therefore it's only common sense for the Liberal Party to be standing in this area, because I believe very strongly that three-cornered contests certainly help the coalition parties.